Welcome to another session of Parent University On Demand. Today, we're excited to have some very exciting guests to help us tackle the question a lot of families have. What does the special education process look like from referral to eligibility to IEP development? So let's jump right into it.
Good morning. My name is Sheila Grant, and I am one of the managers of Special Education Accountability in the Division of Specialized Instruction. Our team, we work with schools regarding special education compliance. We support special education in special education leadership in all the buildings across the city.
Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit more about the timeline from referral to the IEP development?
All students ages 3 to 22, DCPS must adhere to federal state timelines for referral, evaluation, and identification when a disability is suspected. Referrals for evaluation for special education and related services can be made verbally or in written form. The timeline for initial eligibility is no later than 60 calendar days after written consent has been obtained. If determined eligible, consent for initial provision of services is obtained and an initial IEP developed within 30 days of the eligibility determination.
That's a timeline, but how can a family make a referral, or who makes the referral? What happens after the referral is made?
Anyone can make the referral, so the teacher can make the referral, the parent, and anyone who has knowledge of the student. But the first step in the process would be the review of data that the team may have. This step of the evaluation process is used to determine whether there is sufficient information to make an eligibility decision or if formal or additional assessments are needed. This review is conducted in collaboration with all required members of the IEP team. For each type of information reviewed, for example, assessments, progress reports, work samples, observations, to name a few, the IEP team will need to consider what the data tells them about the student. The IEP team will summarize strengths and weaknesses and review interventions previously used. Implementation of strong interventions helps prevent the over-identification of students into special education, especially those in historically overrepresented populations, and helps ensure students are served in their least restrictive environments.
So the decision is made by the team. Is there state level criteria?
So once the team has determined that they have enough information to review, an eligibility determination meeting can be held. The eligibility determination meeting is used to review all of the available data. On the basis of this review, determine whether the student qualifies for special education and or related services under IDEA or Individuals with Disability Education Act. As the members of the IEP team prepare to make an eligibility determination, they must identify the disability category or categories to consider. Under IDEA, there are 13 disability categories. After reviewing the eligibility criteria and discussing exclusionary factors, the IEP team will make a final decision regarding the student's eligibility or ineligibility for special education and related services. This includes both determining the most appropriate eligibility classification, if any, and determining the areas of concern impacted. If the student is determined to be ineligible for special education and related services, but there is evidence of a disability, the school team will refer the student to the 504 coordinator for determination of eligibility for Section 504 services. If there's no evidence of disability, the school team will refer the student back to the MTSS lead for additional supports and interventions. If the student was found eligible through an initial eligibility process, the IEP team must also provide the parent or guardian with a consent for initial provision of services form and a letter of invitation for the initial IEP meeting. If the student was found eligible through a reevaluation process, the IEP team should provide the family with the letter of invitation for an annual IEP meeting.
What is the parent's role in this process?
The parent is an integral part of the IEP team. The parent will work together with the school team by providing any information the parent may have of their child. For example, the student may have been evaluated at an outside agency, children's hospital, their physician, etc. And the parent would work collaboratively with the school to ensure that the school team has all of the important information, all of the different sources of data to properly review and make the most appropriate determination for their student.
And how soon after the student is found eligible for services is the IEP completed and implemented?
Once the student is found eligible, the team has 30 days from the date of eligibility to develop and implement the IEP.
Thank you. So that was all very valuable information. We do have a couple more questions, frequently asked questions from our families. The first one is going all the way to the beginning of this conversation. Who should I contact if I feel like my child needs special education services?
You should contact whoever the special education coordinator or the lead special education point of contact is in the school. You could also just contact the student's classroom teacher, the principal. You can contact any of the adults in the building who work with the student. So it does not have to be the special education administrator. It could be just the classroom teacher, and you working with the classroom teacher to determine what interventions have been used, what interventions have been successful, and what the parents' concerns are for where the student is and where they see any gaps.
Another question that came from families is, what is expected of me as a family member, as a parent, when it comes to the process of eligibility and IEP development process? Like how much involvement, how much time should I expect to set aside for this process?
So the parent involvement, it will vary, but typically, the parent will be involved again in participating in the eligibility determination meeting. But prior to that, again, providing any data that the parent may have about the student, also participating in that review of that information, so the analyzing of existing data, and then the final eligibility determination meeting. So each one of those meetings, and if we're talking in terms of time frame, allowing approximately an hour or so to participate in those meetings. And then in the event the student is found eligible to receive services, then there would be, again, 30 days from the date of eligibility determination, there would be an IEP created, and the parent would participate in the IEP meeting, and that meeting would potentially be another hour as well. Yes. So again, when we have the eligibility process, that is part of the determination. Okay, so the team will determine if there's enough information to move forward with an eligibility determination. If it is not, then the team will determine what areas they need to consider, and they will gain consent from the parent, and the school team will evaluate the student in those areas of concern.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. We covered a lot in this session, and we know that families are really busy. And if we could summarize what is the most impactful action that families can take when it takes to understanding the process from referral to eligibility to IEP development, what would be the most important nugget of information that families should walk away with?
A couple of things I would like to underscore. One being that the parent can make the referral for their student, and also that the parent can and should collaborate with their classroom teacher of the student to make sure that they are expressing their concerns for the student. And the other thing that I want to make sure to underscore is that it is a team decision, and that the parent is a major part of that team, and we have to work together to make the most appropriate determination for the student. So if you have any additional questions about special education in DC Public Schools, feel free to visit our website and the Special Education Family Guide, where you will be able to find a number of resources to be able to chart your next steps. For example, special education process, if you have questions about what the process looks like, child find, what that means, the eligibility process, what that looks like for when a student is referred, all the way through when the student is, if they are found eligible or found ineligible. That information can also be reviewed here through the eligibility process at a glance, complete with information about what happens at the referral stage. Also, if the team determines more data is warranted and there needs to be a consent to evaluate that information, the evaluations, as well as all the way to the eligibility determination. If you have questions about what the IEP is and what can I expect to see in an IEP, there's additional information here that will give you an idea of what's included in the IEP and what you can expect. What are the present levels of performance and what are the goals that are going to be on the IEP? So there's additional information here that you can review in order to provide you with more information about the actual IEP if the student is found eligible for services.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We truly appreciate your time. Families, please look at the description box of this video to find a website that contains all the information that was shared here. Additionally, you'll see a link to a survey to let us know if you have any additional questions about the information you heard today, if you have any additional feedback about the Parent University platform in general. And as always, you can reach out to us via our social media platforms and at our email parentu@k12.dc.gov. Thank you.